righty. Well, good morning, everybody. There's Rocky. Hello, Rocky. Yeah. So anyway, oh, it never ends. The stupidity. Let's see what day it is. It's 5:13 in the morning, and it is Friday, March the 7th, in the year of our Lord 2025. Yes, it is. Okay, now let's just see what else we got going on here. I was just listening to a story there. Our clinically insane Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, who wants to be Prime Minister, it's really scary. Anyway, Chrystia Freeland, I like to call her Twitchy Bitchy, but anyway, Christy, because she twitches like she's tweaking or something, which she probably is. There's something definitely not right there. That individual, and who wishes to be Prime Minister, she says that if she is eventually able to be Prime Minister, she's going to get France to come and install nuclear weapons on the border pointed at the United States. So we got that. Now keep track of this now, because I'm going to lay out a bunch of insanity for you here. This is where we're at in Canada now. We've officially become an insane asylum. Yeah, it's official now. We are in just a big snow-covered insane asylum up here. Anyway, yeah. So we got that. We got Chrystia Freeland, who wants to install French nuclear weapons. Now, I don't know about the reliability of French nuclear weapons. I know a little bit about cars. And I know if you want reliability, you do not buy a French car. French cars and Italian cars. Fiats. Yeah, a Fiat is not a good car. It's not. They do not build a good car. The Italians, shitty cars. France, Renaults and Citroens and things, junk. Total junk. You're better off not owning a car. Really, if your choice is either don't own a car or own a French car, get yourself a good pair of shoes and walk everywhere, because you'll be much better off than you would be owning a French car. French cars suck big time. They're just useless. They're not even really cars. They're technically cars, yes, by the strict legal definition of a car, but they're not really. They're just junk. So I'm thinking probably French nukes are about the same. I really don't think I would trust a French nuke. But even if we got our nukes from a reliable place, even if we got nukes that were made properly and that were built to be reliable and to work the way a nuke is supposed to work, even if we got them from a source like that, it would be a really foolhardy thing to put nukes on the border and point them at the United States. It would be just a foolhardy thing to do. Like, if you want an invasion, you couldn't do a better job bringing in even threatening that like she is. She's setting us up for an invasion. And they say, well, Trump wants to take Canada. Well, give him an excuse to invade. That's a good idea. Give him a reason. Give him an actual justification. Yeah, putting nukes on the border, that's a real smart thing to do. Again, it could only come from her. Friggin' dead from the neck up and twitchy from the neck down. Just scary. Look, maybe she's got a neurological disorder, in which case I guess I'm being mean making fun of her. I don't think that's the case, though. She seems like she's actually on some drugs. That's how she seems. And I've known a lot of people who used a lot of drugs. Over the course of my lifetime, I buried a lot of friends who were on drugs and stuff. And so I kind of see the signs. And there's something about her that, you know, like I say, I don't think it's a neurological disorder. I think there's something completely different going on there. Could also be the demons trying to escape. You know, that could also be the case. Maybe the demons possessed her and they were naive and didn't realize where they were actually going, and now they want out. They say, oh shit, what have I done? You know, I don't want to be here. And they're trying to get out, but she won't let them leave. I don't know, so she's holding them in. That might be what all the twitching is. I don't know. Anyway, total idiot, though. Anyway you look at it, total idiot. Wants to put nuclear weapons on the border. You know, point nuclear weapons at the United States. Then, of course, we're also going to boo the American national anthem whenever it's played at sporting events because we're in kindergarten. We're in kindergarten, and Donald Trump, you're a poopy head. And my dad could beat your dad up. Yeah, that's the mentality. You know, we're gonna boo the Star Spangled Banner because we got a kindergarten mentality. The Prime Minister said, "Oh, we're going to continue to boo we're going to continue to boo the American national anthem." The Prime Minister actually said that, Justin Trudeau. Yeah, we're going to knock over our juice and throw our cookie across the room because we're mad. You know, I mean, look. And then people think, because they only get part of the story, because the CBC, people watch the CBC, which, you know, it's a propaganda network. It's paid for by the federal government. So they say whatever the federal government tells them to say. The federal government is the boss of the CBC. You know, if they're signing your paycheck, they're your boss. And the federal government is saying that, oh, we've done this, that, and the other thing. No, they haven't. Like the securing the border thing is an example of this. And I've had conversations with Canadians who don't understand this. My mother's like that. She's a very cognitively dissonant person, and she believes the CBC and all that. And a lot of people of her generation do. A lot of people in their 70s and so on really trust the CBC and believe in it. And at one time, I think the CBC was good. I'm not saying the CBC was never any good, but it's not any good anymore, and it hasn't been for a very long time. It's now become a propaganda machine. That's what it's become. And under this government that we have now, that's what it's become. But anyway, like my mother says, well, only 41 pounds of fentanyl has gone across the border. That's what they caught. 41 pounds. That's what they've caught so far. But I say, you know, it's like a cockroach on the wall. If you're in a house and you see a cockroach on the kitchen wall, that cockroach isn't the only cockroach in that house. I guarantee you that. That's just the one you saw. You know, for every cockroach you see, there's hundreds or even thousands that you don't see. All the walls are teeming with them. You know, it's just there happens to be one who came out, and you see the one that came out. You know, if you take an old car that's got some rust in it, and you got a rust spot on a rear quarter panel about that big around, you know, where the paint's all starting to bubble and it's turning brown. If you take your hammer and you start smashing that in and knocking all the loose rust out from around that hole, you end up with a hole that you can put your fist through easily, you know, before you actually hit solid metal. What you see is just a fraction of what's actually there. I'll give you another example. we know that there's an issue with drugs in the penitentiaries, in the prison system, and we know that the prison system is, the prisons are full of drugs, and prisoners, even though they're not supposed to, they have access to drugs. There's a whole economy in prison, and it's a very much a drug-centered economy. And anything you want in prison, you can get for the right price. It'll cost you, because it's like a black market economy. And with a black market economy, things always cost more than they do in the street. If you buy anything on the black market, you'll pay a lot more for it than you will if you buy it in a legitimate store. But then if you can't get it any other way and you really need it, you'll buy it on the black market and you'll just pay the high price, Well, in prison, that's how it is. They have to pay these black market prices, but they can get anything they want, really. And so it's like saying, okay, we caught some woman coming in to see her boyfriend, and she had a bunch of dope stuffed up her coochie, and we caught her. And so that's all the dope that's come into the prison. No, that's what you caught. You didn't catch all the other women who were doing similar things, who were doing the same thing. You didn't catch the corrupt prison guards who are bringing it in because they're on the take and they're getting a percentage. You didn't catch the prisoner who gets out on a temporary absence pass and comes back in with a bunch of dope stuffed up his asshole, or a dope, that in condoms or balloons that he swallowed, and he's coming in with it in his stomach and he's going to shit it out later and distribute it. You don't catch those guys. You haven't caught all that. You've just caught this one woman that happened to be acting as a drug mule, bringing it in. So you've caught that, yes, but that's just a percentage, and probably a very small percentage. That's how it is at the border. They say, well, they got 41 pounds of fentanyl, so that's all there is. No, that's what you caught. That's like the one cockroach on the wall in the kitchen. That does not represent the actual number as far as what's going across. That represents a percentage of that number. And you've intercepted that, so technically that hasn't even gone across. So that isn't even really part of what's gone across. That's what you've caught and stopped from going across. But what goes across is a lot more than what you're actually catching. And see, this is the problem. So we turn around and we make these arguments. Well, we caught 41 pounds of it going across, so there's no real problem. It's like 41 pounds. That's what we caught. Well, 41 pounds is 41 pounds too much, for one thing. And for another thing, like I say, that does not represent the actual number. That does not represent what's actually going across from here. We've got, apparently in Canada right now, and this is according to the RCMP, we have hundreds of labs making this stuff, making dope. Where's the dope going? We have a lot of people up here who are addicted. There's no doubt about that. And some of it will be staying in the domestic market. Some of it will be sold to Canadians. But our population is fairly sparse, So even though there are a good number of Canadians who are addicted, unfortunately and tragically, the market really isn't here. The market isn't here. It's across the border where they have this huge population. That's where the market is. That's the market that the cartels want. Yeah, they'll sell it up here. Canadian money. They'll take Canadian money. Canadian money isn't worth the same as American money, but it's not totally valueless. And they'll just, their prices will reflect the difference in the money. That's all. So you'll pay more money up here to get whatever your thing is that you like to use. You'll pay more money to get that than you would stateside. But yeah, they'll definitely sell to the Canadian market. But the Canadian market is not really enough to sustain them the way they want to be sustained, because these people are greedy. You know, they want as much money as they can possibly make, and the place to do that is the United States. And so, yes, it is going across the border, and there's a lot of it going across the border. And, to say, well, we caught 41 pounds, so there's all it is. And I've had people make, my mother made that argument to me, oh, there's only 41 pounds. No, it's 41 pounds that got caught. But see, that's the CBC. The CBC will tell you there's 41 pounds. That's all there is, 41 pounds, because that's what we caught. No, again, that's like saying that woman you caught bringing the stuff into her boyfriend in the jail, that's the only drugs that have ever come into the jail is that, and we caught that. So, in the meantime, on the cell block, you got guys taking seizures and dying because they've overdosed and stuff. So obviously there's other drugs getting in somehow. Like that one woman wasn't the only problem. She's just the problem you caught. But it's like anything. Look, even with crimes and so on, with criminals. If you go into a jail and you interview the guys in the jail, and you say, okay, what are you in for? Well, I'm convicted for such and such. Okay. How many other things have you been caught for? Well, I was caught for this, I was caught for that. Okay. What crimes have you actually committed? If they were honest with you, which they'd be foolish to be honest with you because they'd be cutting their own throats, but if they were honest with you, you'd soon find out that the stuff they've been caught and jailed for is a fraction of what they've actually done. Because most of the time when you commit a crime, you get away with it. You might commit 10 crimes before you get caught and jailed. So, I mean, for every crime that some guy has been jailed for, he's committed 5 or 10 other crimes that you don't know about those, though. And see, that's the thing. And everything in this world is like that. For what for what you actually catch, there's a bunch of stuff that you haven't caught. That's just how it is. It's the same with theft in a workplace or whatever. For every bit of theft they catch where employees are stealing from the workplace, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of theft that actually goes on, in a workplace. Everything is the same. What you catch is a fraction of what's actually happening. And so it's a flawed argument. Like, I'm not that bright, and even I can see that it's a flawed argument. So right now we got this kindergarten mentality. We got these people with the mentality of 5-year-olds. And they're talking about putting nuclear weapons on the border. They're talking about we're going to, and then in the next breath, we're going to boo the Star Spangled Banner when it's played. And it's like, okay, we're going to do the 5-year-old knock over the juice and throw the cookie across the room thing. But we're also going to pull a switchblade or a gun or whatever, There's a reason that they don't give 5-year-olds aren't allowed to have real weapons. When I was 5, I had a really beautiful cap pistol. I wish I had the thing now. I wish I could show it to you because it was impressive. It was heavy. It was made out of really heavy steel, and it had like the wood handles and stuff, and it was blued like the old West pistols. They do that bluing thing with them. It was blued. It actually looked like a real gun, like something that John Wayne would have carried or whatever in a movie. That's how this thing looked. And even the way you loaded the caps into it was really neat because the trigger mechanism actually dropped down. It was hinged, and you'd actually drop the trigger mechanism down, and you'd load your caps in there that way, and then you would push it back up and lock it back in place or whatever. And that gun, it worked really well. To fire the cap, say, and I mean, bang, and there'd be smoke and everything. And it was pretty cool anyway, and it looked like a real weapon. Outwardly, you to look at it, you would think you were looking at something that came out of the Old West, that came out of Tombstone or some other place like that, something Wyatt Earp would have carried around with him or whatever. But it wasn't real. I couldn't actually kill anybody with it. And the reason for that is I was 5. And I wasn't allowed to have things that I could kill people with. Because I was 5. I had a 5-year-old's brain, I didn't understand the implications of taking another person's life. How serious a matter that is. So I wasn't trusted with things that I could use to kill people. Now it was an impressive looking thing, but it was a toy. It was a perfectly harmless thing. The only way I might have hurt somebody with it is if I were to beat them over the head with it or something. And yeah, it would hurt you if you were beat over the head with it, because it was a heavy, solid piece of metal. So you wouldn't want that. But the bottom line is, it was not a deadly weapon. Like I say, if I threw it at you and hit you in the face, it would hurt you, But I mean, at 5, I knew not to do things like that because that would get you into trouble. But the thing is, because I had a 5-year-old's brain, I wasn't allowed to have things that could really do serious harm to another person. Yet we got these political leaders with the 5-year-old mentality. We're going to boo your national anthem. And oh, by the way, we're going to put nukes on the border. It's like, I hear that, and the contrast of it just, okay, so what, we got these people with a 5-year-old mentality, and they've got their finger on the trigger there for the nukes. They got their finger on the red button. That's kind of scary. Like the idea of Chrystia Freeland being in charge of anything that has those kinds of consequences behind it if it's ever used it's really frightening. And I mean, Mark Carney is no better. Justin Trudeau is a complete waste, and he's no better. And then we got that stiff as a board friggin' Poliver there, and he's in lockstep with them. And look, this proposal that we put forward as a country to deal with the situation at the border, it was a stupid proposal. It was going to be very expensive, but it wasn't going to do anything. And see, that's what we do here. We throw money at things and we end up with nothing. But we keep throwing money at it because we're stupid. That's what we do here in Canada. Like, I mean, look, basically the way the proposal worked, there was no way to implement it because we don't have the people, for one thing, to do what we promised to do. And we had no intention of doing what we promised to do. And even if we had started to do what we promised to do, it would be at least 2 years before it would have any effect at all. That's 2 years worth of dope going across the border. I mean, there are reasons why the Americans are concerned about us, and especially now that they've sealed the border with Mexico and made it that it's a lot harder to get anything across there. I'm not saying nothing ever goes across there. There's still stuff being brought across, but it's not anywhere near to what it was. Well, then now the cartels are in Canada, and they're operating in Canada now and bringing stuff across because it's an easier thing to do. And so, yeah, I mean, look, we are doing this to ourselves. We're not being bullied. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We are not being bullied. We're doing it to ourselves. Now, do I think Trump is right in everything he does? I don't. I think he's handled the Epstein client list really badly. I think that was an embarrassment and a fiasco. I think he needs to do better with things like that. I think that his expansionist rhetoric is stupid. It makes him sound like a total idiot, and he needs to stop that as well. All this talk about acquiring Greenland and stuff, like, just stop it. You sound like an idiot. You know, Donald Trump, you sound like a total idiot when you're talking like that. But as far as his stand, what he's talking about with Canada here and our border, he's not wrong. He's not wrong about that. There is an issue here. And, as far as his talk about Canada becoming the 51st state and so on, I don't know how serious he is about that. He might be serious. Canada is a failed nation, though, too. So if we're a failed nation, we're going to get that. We're going to get people who want to take it over because it's a failed nation. And especially people who are in business or whatever. Like, this is what they do. They do hostile takeovers and stuff. In Donald Trump's world, that's normal. You get a company that's failing, and you can buy that company for pennies on the dollar. And if you have the ability to turn it around and make a profit, well, then that's what you do. You see, that's in his world. That's business. That's how you do it. And so he sees this failed nation. Well, why is it a failed nation? People are saying, well, it's a failed nation because of Donald Trump. No, it isn't. It's a failed nation because of us. It's a failed nation because of our bad government. That's why it's a failed nation. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. We didn't bankrupt it. Or we did bankrupt it. What am I saying? We didn't bankrupt it. We did bankrupt it. Donald Trump didn't bankrupt Canada. We did that. And now he's thinking he's going to come in and he's going to buy the remnants at fire sale prices. Because in his world, that's what you do. In his world, if a holding company owns a building, owns an office building or a condominium building or whatever, and that holding company is being really poorly managed, he picks up on that and he watches and he waits because he knows that that company is going to go tits up because it's really poorly run. And so he just waits. And eventually, and yeah, it's predatory, but the fact is, in that world, that's how it is. It's a predatory world. It's no different than the lion who watches the herd, and he looks for the stragglers. He looks for the ones who aren't able to keep up, and those ones, they become lunch. That's how it is. The ones who can't keep up become lunch for the lion. And so that's how it is in his world. So what he does is he watches in his business prior to being president. He watches these poorly run companies and he watches them go down, and he sees what assets they have. What do they own? Well, they own this tower over here, and they own this condominium complex over here, and so on. He sees that. He sees it's poorly run. He just waits. And when they've gone right down to the point where they're right on the brink of bankruptcy, he goes to the company's owners and he says, look, you guys aren't doing well. You know it, and I know it too. I'm going to make you a deal. Rather than to go bankrupt and with all that entails, I will buy your assets. I'll buy your company from you. And I'll give you a better price than what it's really worth at this point, but you're still not going to do very well. But, you won't go bankrupt either. And most of the time they'll agree to it because they're just desperate to get out from under it at that point. And so he'll buy all their assets up, like I say, at fire sale prices, at bankruptcy prices, for pennies on the dollar, and then he'll manage the company properly and he'll turn it around, and the company will become profitable. And see, guys like him who know how to do that, they watch companies that aren't being properly managed and they just wait. And yes, it's a predatory thing. For sure it is. But that's how it is in his world. That's what he's doing with Canada. Now, you can argue that he's a piece of shit because it's a predatory thing to do. But here's the thing. If those companies weren't poorly managed in the first place, he wouldn't be watching them and waiting for the opportunity to come in and scoop everything up for next to nothing. You know? He's doing that because the poor management has opened the door to allow him to do it. And so the fault is with the poor management, really. And that's the same for Canada. Our country has been mismanaged for a long time. And now he sees his opportunity. He says, I'll come in, I'll buy up the assets. And because that, again, that's how he thinks, because in his world, that's what you do. And he's not the only one. All these successful developers in places like New York City, most of them acquired their assets the same way. They started out with a company that they managed well, and they had some success. And then they started looking at the companies that weren't being managed well and that weren't successful, and they just waited and bided their time. And when the time was right, when they knew these guys are sweating now because they know they're screwed, basically, and they're sweating. Then you walk in like the White Knight and you say, hey, I'll save you. I'll get you out from under this. And of course, you're not really doing them a favor. What you're doing is you're increasing your own wealth off their failure. And yes, like I say, it is predatory for sure. But it can't be done unless the company is not managed properly in the first place. And that's what's happened with Canada. Canada has not been managed properly. And so now we're about to have a hostile takeover. But we're not helping ourselves any with this nuclear weapons talk and everything. We're giving, and then Ford, that idiot, Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, wanting to commit an act of war, was talking about cutting off the power, to New York State or whatever. That's a stupid thing. Cut their power and then people die. People who are on machines to keep them alive, on dialysis machines and life support and stuff, those people die. The power gets cut to the hospitals and everything. It's the dead of winter. If you cut the power now, people will freeze to death down there. It's an act of war. You've now killed American citizens. You've committed an act of war. That's what you've done if you do that. As soon as one person dies because you've done that, you've committed an act of war. And then you give Trump, if you're worried that Trump is going to take the place over, now you're giving him a legal excuse to invade with this talk of nuclear weapons, and you're going to cut the power and all that. You're now giving him legal reasons to justify a military invasion. So if you think he's a predator, which I tend to agree with you, he has a predatory way about him for sure. Like I say, that's the business he was in for a lot of years. That's how that business works. It's a predatory business. And he's applying a lot of those principles to how he's running the United States. And in a way, it's a good thing for them because they need somebody who applies those kinds of principles to get them out of the mess that they're in from having one after another of globalist governments for so many years. And that's what we've had in Canada, is one after another of globalist governments. And they've thrown us under the bus and sold us down the river. And here we are on the brink of bankruptcy, or bankrupt. We're probably actually bankrupt, but they haven't told us that yet. We're definitely, at the very least, on the brink of bankruptcy. And so now he's saying, okay, I can do a hostile takeover. Just like I did with this holding company and that holding company in the 1970s and 80s and so on. That's what I'm going to do with Canada. But again, he couldn't have done those hostile takeovers years ago, except for the companies that he took over were so poorly run. And it wasn't his fault that they were poorly managed. You know, it's not his fault that Canada's been poorly managed. That's on us and on our government. And like I say, when you start talking about nuclear weapons and cutting off the power and all the rest of it, what you're doing there is you're talking about war. You know, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about war. Now, look, if I was a married man and I had a wife and children, and some guy was saying, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to murder your entire family, my reaction would be to cut him off at the pass. I don't want that guy coming anywhere near my wife and family. So I'm going to be doing something to neutralize him before that can even happen. You know, well, if you're the leader of a country, if you're any kind of a leader at all, and the leader of another country saying we're going to put nukes on the border, and if you make us mad, we're going to fire nukes into your country and kill your citizens. We're going to cut off the power to your country and kill your citizens that way. Well, I tell you, if I was the leader of a country and the leader of a neighboring country was talking like that, the leadership of a neighboring country, and I had the ability to go in there and put a stop to it, that's exactly what I'd do. I wouldn't give them the chance to fire their nuclear weapons or to cut the power. I'd be going in there by force and taking it by force and saying, oh no, this ain't happening. Just like any halfways decent husband and father would do to protect his family in a similar situation. You know, you go to the source of the trouble and you'd shut it down. If you're able to, that's what you'd do before it ever reaches your doorstep. You know? So, I mean, that's the thing. You know, you wouldn't want your wife and kids to ever know the kind of danger they were in. You know, you just quietly go and take care of it. And see, that's the thing. And, you know, your wife and your children would never know that there was ever a threat. You'd know, but you took care of it, so it wouldn't be a problem anymore. And so all this saber rattling we're doing, we're actually giving him a legal excuse to come across over here and invade us militarily. It's a dumb thing to do. It's a dumb thing to do. We're not going to go to war against the United States and win. It's a stupid, stupid thing. But see, what's happening is Justin Trudeau, his popularity was in the toilet. The Liberal Party was done. Now they see an opportunity to redeem themselves. And now it's working. Canadians are saying, well, at least he's standing up for us against that orange man down there. And he's not going to be bullied and, you know, all this business. That's what we got now. So he's actually now capitalizing on this because, you know, as big a con artist as Trump is, Justin Trudeau's an even bigger con artist. So, you know, and he's capitalizing on the situation. And so, and of course, Canadians are so stupid and easily manipulated that it's not hard to do. So now Justin Trudeau, all of a sudden, there's a lot of people didn't like him. Now all of a sudden, people are singing his praises. He's some sort of a hero, you know. And the Liberal Party now has a chance of staying in power. And of course, what's the alternative? We got that stupid Pierre Poilievre with the Conservatives. He's no good, and he's in lockstep with them. So he's so stupid, he's actually playing along. And he's going to help the Liberals to stay in power by doing so. That's what we're dealing with here. Like, you know, basically, we're making North Korea look like a refuge of sanity. You know, Kim Jong-il and his bunch are starting to look like they're not nearly as crazy as the people we got running this place. Even he's probably giving them the side eye. I bet Kim Jong-il's over there in North Korea kind of looking at Trudeau like this, like, really? You know, really? Good luck with that, you know? I mean, yeah, it's just complete insanity anyway. Yeah, we're living in a nut house. We're living in a nut house. We're living in a my dad can beat your dad up. I'm going to knock my juice over and throw my cookie across the room. And oh, by the way, we're going to nuke you and we're going to cut your power so that your people get killed. And, you know, it's like, you know, we got the 5-year-olds now are in charge of the heavy artillery. It's not a good thing. You know, Justin Trudeau, I don't even think I'd trust him with my cap pistol. If I still had my cap pistol, I don't think I'd trust him to hold it for me. I'd be afraid he'd get himself into some kind of trouble with it. You know? Oh, gosh. Anyway, there's Rocky. There he is. Hi, Rocky. Oh, are you excited? Look how excited he gets, eh? You know, he is 16 years old. He's going to be 17 years old at the end of August. August 30th is his birthday. That is literally his birthday. He was born on August 30th, 2008. And Rocky, he's the equivalent right now of like an 80-year-old man. But just look at him. He's like a kitten. He is. In so many ways, he is. He's like a kitten, but with the wisdom of an old man. That's what he is. He's got the acquired life experience of an old man, but he's like a kitten at heart. Hey, you're a good boy, Rocky. I appreciate you. I do. You give wonderful head boobs. Anyway, that's where we're at. That's what's happening here. I hope you're all doing well this morning. And I guess we'll see you later. Bye for now.